You are now watching Zach Lesage, the best place to learn about competitive Pokemon TCG. Let's get it! Yo, what's poppin' peeps? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. We're going to be covering our first top 20 decks for the Brilliant Stars format. Yep, the decks that did not quite make the top 10 decks, decks 11 through 20. And we're going to see exactly what's going on. Is there going to be familiar faces such as Dragapult in this video? Are there going to be absolutely new faces, maybe decks that are featuring Arceus VSTAR? Where are all the decks landing? This is a great video to understand where the metagame could evolve from. Maybe someone had an idea that we can grow upon. We'll see all the best decks in the formats. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to be excited, but let me know what's going on, which decks are going to be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever you want in the comments. Take your guesses now, peeps, before we start the video. No peeking, no cheating, whatever. And for all of these decks, I'm going to have deck lists available in the pinned comment, and there might be reference videos for some of them as well. If there's not, I'm likely working on it. I'm only one person and we can only put up so many videos a day. I'm doing double uploads and the set was just released less than a week ago. These videos are a great way to understand what's going on with the metagame, so by all means, give it a thumbs up, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into our number 20 spot. Starting it off at number 20 and not making the list last week is Decidueye. Now, where Decidueye kind of gets its strength is that Beedrill is now more easily accessible to grab out due to Single Strike Mustard working with Ultra Ball. It's not necessarily the craziest combo, but now that we have Ultra Ball, we can consistently bring our hand lower, which makes this concept a little bit better. Decidueye is going to always be trying to block things with its Deep Forest Camo ability, but there are some decks, like Mew VMAX, that you can't necessarily block all the time, and that's just because they have things like Max Miracle. Beedrill will be able to OHKO them. That's really where this deck's at. I'm not necessarily a big fan of decks like this, because they seem to just still struggle against random things, but if you do get this deck to work, it can be incredibly effective. If you have been playing PTCG Live, this may or may not be a suitable upgrade from the Decidueye deck that they feature in the game, so give it a try. It's okay. We're still very early in our Brilliant Stars metagame, so I think this is one of those decks that is a crossover deck. Getting that top 8 at Limitless events might not necessarily be as consistent for next week. I think we're probably going to see a lot more results considering we're dealing with a full week instead of just a few days. That being said, all these lists are available in the pinned comment with reference videos for some of them. By all means, check that out in the pinned comment. You can copy and paste these decks right into PTCGO or PTCG Live. Rapid striking it up into number 20. Yeah, both decks at number 20 because they both have 20 CP, and falling all the way from number 11 is Rapid Strike Malamar. I think Rapid Strike Malamar does get some nice little inclusions from the new Minccino with Call for Family and Cynthia's Ambition, but it's still a single prize card deck, and a lot of players might not necessarily be flocking to this deck right now. I think they're trying to play Arceus VSTAR, and it's one thing if like Malamar won like the full grip event, we had Duraludon Arceus, people are going to test the new big shiny deck. So if there's an opportunity for players to kind of crush it out with Malamar, or we see one spike an event, that's really what's going to correlate to the success. The goal of this deck is to use Rapid Strike Tentacles, pitch away a bunch of Rapid Strike cards from your hand, shuffle them back, and then continuously roll with that. I think this deck's really good, and it's definitely under position. Like it's not positioned where it should be. It should be a little bit higher up in the list. Will eventually make top 10. I'm honestly not sure. I thought this deck would be much better at the gate, but it seems like players are preferring other single prize card decks such as Dark Toolbox. Max phantoming all the way into number 18 and not making the list last week or for the past few weeks is Dragapult VMAX. Now this is a deck that I know a lot of people love to see up there, and it's nice to see Dragapult VMAX on the top 20 again. Max Phantom's all about doing that damage to the active, spreading that damage counters around, and maybe using quick shooting to get a couple prize cards here and there, line up some extra prize cards. This deck doesn't really gain much, but it does gain choice belts. So instead of doing 130, 130 to do 260, you can now do 160 plus 160. Of course, pairing that with Horror Psychic Energy and Quick Shooting and Zigzagoon, you might be able to stretch that a little bit further to get some really cool attacks off. Do I think this deck's much better? I think it's just some players that are being excited to play Dragapult with Choice Belt, and I think a lot of these cards like Choice Belt, Ultra Ball are going to add that to a lot of previously existing decks. Every deck got better, and that means that players can play these decks and they are more than acceptable. Deck building is going to be really cool for the next little bit. So will we see Dragapult continuously in the top 20? Honestly, I don't really think so unless single prize card decks really take a step up. I do think that it might be better to play something like Mimikyu VMAX or something like that. But right now, I think Dragapult's alright. Might stay in the top 20 for the foreseeable future. Might drop off. This deck, relatively unknown. I'd say that I'd argue that it's probably going to fall off sooner than later, but I could be wrong. If you're trying to pick up any of these cards for any of these decks in this video or any of my videos, you can go to ptcgostore.com, plug in code ZELASAGE5, save 5% on your next order of codes. You could also use that on PTCG Live to just open up some packs, start building up your collection there too. Flying all the way to number 18 and not being on the list last week because we were in a Fusion Strike format is Flygon V with Arceus VSTAR. To me, this is a really cool deck, and it's the exact same list that made top 16 at the Full Group Games tournament. A few players played it, but I believe it was Michael Sletsky that did make top 16 the highest placement with this deck. Similar to what we've already seen with the Single Strike Mustard, with Ultra Ball, you can summon things like Beedrill. That's why it plays 2 Beedrill, to knock out some Pokemon that are having special energies attached. Quite a few of them have it, including the best deck in the format from yesterday's video, Mew VMAX. Arceus VSTAR really serves as a vessel to power up Flygon, and you could hit pretty hard against whatever you want. I think this deck's really cool, and it's one of those cases where Arceus VSTAR is probably playable with a lot more stuff than we think. And I think that Flygon is certainly a capable, solid choice. Are there better choices? I mean, so far it looks like there might be. Otherwise, Flygon might just be good. It's one of those things where I think there's a lot of really cool techs, but you could probably build this deck 1,000 different ways. Maybe not 1,000 of different ways are right, but there's a lot of ways to kind of build a deck like this. I think it's one of those things where there's certainly some concepts and some things to realize when it comes down to it. The concept of Arceus and Single Strike or Rapid Strike Mustard is very good so far. We've seen that in the Duraludon VMAX deck with Arceus VSTAR. And having suitable attackers is super cool as well. So, by all means, I do want to cover this one on my channel. We'll have to see how it plays out. It's one of those Arceus decks that looks awesome. Great job to everyone who worked on this deck. Skyscraper to number 18, you can see that we're on a pretty big tie right here at the 30 CP, and falling all the way from number 7 is Duraludon VMAX. Now, this deck did make number 3 as Duraludon Arceus, but this is kind of the same old version, and we saw Logan McKay, my Shuffle Squad team member, bring this deck to a solid placement, kind of using the old school Duraludon VMAX. Is it due to a lack of cards? Is it due to the heavy healing and disruption element? Guess we'll never know. It's one of those things where I think that this build is certainly different enough from the Duraludon Arceus deck, where it's like, is it better to accelerate energies, or is it better to be kind of an attacking control deck? Two different styles of play, but this one did earn enough CP to make it onto the list by itself, so that's where we're featuring it. Block your opponent's special energies, you're absolutely chillin'. G-Max Pulverization, Crushing Hammer Team Yell, Crushing Hammer Team Yell, you get the point. I think there's not a lot of merit to this deck. At the same time, I do think the Duraludon Arceus build is better, but I don't necessarily want to discount this one because it was one of the most successful decks in our Fusion Strike metagame, and quite often history repeats itself some way or another. So, solid choice. I think we'll have to see where this deck eventually goes. I wouldn't be surprised if this just turned into Duraludon Arceus going forward, and this deck might just like fade away. Rapid Striking it all the way to number 18, like a bunch of decks on this list at number 18th, is Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. Now this deck is falling all the way from number 6, and I think it's due to a lot of players worried about Manaphy in the format, stopping G-Max Rapid Flow from hitting 2 Pokemon and only turning it into 1. I know there are quite a few decks like Dark Box that are playing Manaphy, and there are a few others that are playing Manaphy as well, so maybe G-Max Rapid Flow will take a brief pause as players try to discover the metagame. It also doesn't help that decks like Mew VMAX and Arceus Toolbox both have psychic attackers, whether it's Mew VMAX, Meloetta, Hoopa V using its ability. This deck might have, like, Rapid Strike Urshifu might have found its match in the metagame, but I do think this deck has the opportunity to climb back mountains. It's certainly seen itself in other tough situations, and it's always come back. This deck's about using Gale Thrust to knock out Darkness, or fighting weak Pokemon like Darkness-type Pokemon like Gengar VMAX, Jolteon VMAX, all that kind of stuff. It's also trying to use G-Max Rapid Flow with Quick Shooting and all these other little techs, so you could draw multiple prize cards in a turn. It didn't really gain much. It gained like Ultra Ball, so it's one of those decks that it's gained a little bit less than most. That also contributes to the reason why it's so low on this list. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this one creep up a little higher, but reasonably I don't think it can go super high in this current state of the metagame. Zapping all the way to number 18th, and this is the last deck at 18th place, is Jolteon VMAX. This deck had a steep fall from number 2. It was the number 2 deck in all of Fusion Strike, but again, as we mentioned, with the Rapid Strike Urshifu, Manaphy is stopping a lot of this deck's good matchups, such as Malamar and in the Dark Toolbox matchup. And of course, there are quite a few decks that can just beat this, such as Mew. Dark Toolbox beats it. I even think Duraludon Arceus has a pretty solid matchup. There's a lot of things that Jolteon can just struggle against in this metagame. And Max Thunder Rumble doing 100 damage to the active, 100 damage to a bench. As long as they have a damage counter, you can get that with Headbutt Tantrum and Quick Shooting. It's one of those things. This deck doesn't really gain much except Ultra Ball. So again, you can see a pattern of decks that gain less, not seeing as much success. Decks that are having to deal with new problems in the format, such as Manaphy, seeing less success. I think Jolteon VMAX is certainly capable to kind of proceed forward. We might get to a point where everyone cuts Manaphy from their decks because no one's playing any Rapid Strike Urshifu, no one's playing Jolteon. That's when these decks can kind of make their move through the dark. I think Jolteon VMAX does have a chance. It saw number 2 for the entirety of the metagame. I don't really see why it would not be a little bit better than number 18. We'll have to see how this week kind of proceeds as we get our first full week of Brilliant Stars, not a half week of tournament results. Breezing all the way to number 13, that steep drop from number 18, and moving on up on the list from number 15 is Leafeon VMAX. Now, this deck didn't really gain much. It gained Ultra Ball, and I think that's pretty cool. Maybe Choice Belt might not be too bad into this deck, especially if there's some correct numbers, but it is one of those things where there's not necessarily as many decks at the top that have 0 retreat costs. I mean, it was Mew and Jolteon. Now it's just Mew, because we already surpassed Jolteon with this deck. Leafeon VMAX gets slightly better positioned, not entirely sure how much better position, but you can always just go Grass Knot, Galar Mine, and attack for a lot of damage depending on your opponent's retreat cost. Now, Arceus VSTAR, not necessarily like a terrible matchup or anything else like that, but it does present some things that you could just kind of quick shooting, Grass Knot, knockouts, and make things happen. I do think that Leafeon VMAX might have an opportunity to see some success in this format, but largely it's not the most competitive deck anymore. It's the case of it where it's a very well-constructed deck in concept, but it just isn't fully supported by the metagame. So if the metagame changes up a little bit to kind of become more accepting of this deck, I think this deck certainly has a great chance to see success. Galloping in the shadows all the way to number 13th, and not on the list last week, is Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX. So we have another tie at 13, but Shadow Rider is making it up on the list, and I think it's largely due to Arceus VSTAR and all the cards that it kind of gets from here. Having the ability to kind of power up things so that you can do more damage with Max Geist and accelerating energies, and maybe even going Starbirth, Energy Switch, moving an energy around. There's a lot of cool plays that you can make with this type of deck. I like Lumineon V, searching for Adventurous Discovery. It got a lot of consistency that it needed. Don't necessarily think it might be as good as Mew VMAX, but it certainly has opportunities, especially against single prize card decks like Malamar, that you could also just use Shadow Rider Calyrex V, snipe 50-50, get around Manaphy. You should be really cool there. So accelerating energies, doing a lot of damage with Max Geist. This deck seems to have a lot more options than it ever did. I saw a lot of players also playing this deck with Whimsicott VSTAR. That may or may not be the better choice, but we'll have to see exactly what's going on with this deck as it progresses. I think it's safe to say that Shadow Rider Calyrex is in a much better position than it always has been, or at least it has been since it originally came out in Chilling Reign, but it's one of those things. We'll have to see exactly how it goes. Let's monitor this one because it might break into the top 10. And our last deck of this list, it does say number 13, but it's a multi-tie to number 13, Charizard VSTAR, not making the list before because it's new in Brilliant Stars. So this kind of toolbox fire-type deck with Magma Basin, you can accelerate energies to your Pokemon, attack with single prize card, 2 prize card, and 3 prize card Pokemon. I guess I shouldn't say 3 prize card Pokemon. I'm getting confused with VMAX Pokemon. That's not a Charizard VMAX, that's a Charizard VSTAR. I'm still getting used to VSTARs being worth 2 prize cards. It's a weird time. You think anything that evolves from a V is worth 3 prize cards. It's only worth 2, so a mix between 2 prize card Pokemon, some with more HP or less HP. Having attacks that can kind of hit everything in between, and of course an engine that seems to support things with its Mew, Mysterious Tail grabbing item cards, things like Pokegear, and being able to search things out with Lumineon such as Kindler. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this deck, and it's very aggressive. I'm not entirely sure how this deck holds up against a lot of the metagame like Mew. I can only imagine that it's kind of a back and forth game, but we'll have to see as this deck progresses and sees a little bit more success. I think there is space for a fire type deck in the top cards. I honestly think that it might just end up becoming some kind of Victini VMAX deck with Magma Basin, but that's just me. We'll have to see as the metagame progresses, but that's just my guess. Let me know in the comments what you think about this top 10 list. And it's one of those things where we'll have to see how it goes for next week. But this is what we got going on for the first week of Brilliant Stars. Charizard VSTAR chilling at number 13. Tied for that almost top 10 spot with Shadow Rider and Leafeon. Who would have ever expected it? And that's what we got going on for this video today, peeps. Hopefully you enjoyed learning more about our Brilliant Stars metagame. It's really an exciting time to be a Pokemon TCG player and seeing all these different decks. Will you get your deck in the top 20? If you have something special, by all means, try it out at the late night series. They're every single Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be an absolute awesome time. And I hope this video does help you on your journey if you are preparing for any online events, any in real life regionals, anything going on. If you haven't already, you can always copy and paste the list from the pinned comment below. They're all there, and there's reference videos for some of them. If not, we're going to eventually get there. We're working on those videos. Let me know what you want to see for videos in the comments below. If you're trying to pick up any of the cards for this deck, you can go to ptcgostore.com, plug in code ZELASAGE5 to save 5% on your next order of codes. You can use those on PTCGO or PTCG Live, depending on which one you're playing on right now. You can always go to atlascollectibles.com, put in code ZELASAGE8 to save 8% off your Pokemon TCG singles. Atlas is a great place, and I appreciate them newly sponsoring this channel. It's an absolutely great time. And you can always go get some coaching from me at medify.gg/atlasaclasage. I can help you up your game. I literally live, breathe everything Pokemon. I can show you a lot about what's going on right now. So if you're trying to grow for late night series, online events, anything like that, I'd love to help you on your journey. That being said, I gotta go edit this video, and it's again getting to be a late night, so I'll catch up with everyone later. Peace out and have a great one. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It means the world to me. And my goal with this channel is to spread my love of the game and knowledge with our entire Pokemon TCG community. If you haven't already, help signal boost this video to other Pokemon TCG fans by liking it, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Hopefully we reach our goals really soon. Check out this recommended video and have yourself a great day. Thanks.